From dusk, welcome to Realm of the Sacred Roots. I wanted to talk to you guys today about the occult law, energy follows thought. Basically, it's how to get the object of your desire. Whatever you desire, you can get. So I wanted to talk to you about that. Please like and subscribe if you would. So I didn't realize for many years that I was doing this. I would think of something, it would happen. And it didn't happen right away. It started out with me thinking something, wishing it, desiring it to happen, and then it would happen 6 months later. And I would wish or hope for something else. And then 4 months later, it would happen. And it continued on that way where I was wishing, hoping, desiring, thinking about it constantly about something else to happen. And it would happen in a month's time. And as I kept doing this, my desires were coming to pass sooner. So it was like I was practicing, basically, thinking it up here, sending it out, and it would happen. It got to the point where I did this. It was, I would think something 2 weeks out, it would happen. And then I think the closest I ever got was 2 days later. What I thought, what I wanted to happen, what I desired, happened 2 days later. At that point, because I was a young girl, I was probably about 19 when this happened. At this point, and this happened within maybe a couple years span, I actually scared myself. I scared myself, and I ran to my parents, who were Christians, and I told my parents what happened, and I told them what I had been doing, and I basically said, now I'm wishing for things to happen, and they're happening not even a day or two later, and I didn't know what to do, and how do I stop this? How do I stop doing this is what I asked my parents, and they told me what they thought I should do to stop making this happen, and they told me to stop wishing for things to happen, and I did. Like I said, I was 18, 19, and I scared myself, and I stopped for a long time. I started back years later, but I stopped for a long time. What I call some of what I just described is a thought form. And let me back up, hold that story I just told you in mind. I want to tell you another story that I just heard on the news maybe a month or two ago, I think. It was basically about a mother who had a child. I think he was 5 or 6 years old, and he had autism. And basically, since the child couldn't communicate with the mother like other children can communicate with their parents, this child, according to the mother, would be able to read her mind. So she could come up with numbers in her head, and her child would telepathically be able to read the mother's mind and know what numbers she was thinking, know what and according to the doctor, the scientist that was there actually testing the child, they said this was normal, wasn't the word they used, but this, even though it was something that's obviously rare, it wasn't unbelievable, because if you can't see and your other senses sharpen, right? You've heard that before. Or if you can't hear, but then your sight gets better, your other senses kick in and they pick up the slack that the other sense doesn't have. Well, in this case, it was the child who couldn't communicate with the mother would communicate telepathically with the mother. And so that's what that story is. Okay, that's the second story I wanted to tell you, because I believe in the way that I wasn't taught rituals when I was young. This was just me naturally doing these things. So I wasn't taught how to think a thought form, send it to the target. These weren't things that I knew how to do. I wasn't taught any type of ceremony to do, any type of ritual to do in order to accomplish what I desired. I believe what happened to me was I figured it out, right? I figured out how to accomplish the goals that I wanted to accomplish, and accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, and actually get it done because my desire was so strong and because I had the power within me to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. So that in itself is what I believe happened to me. So, what I wanted to do was explain to you how to basically achieve what you want and start to practice this. I believe others can do the same thing. All of us create thought forms, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. We're always doing that. It's a matter of formulating these thoughts into into something that's tangible, and it's a matter of sending them out to your target. That is, I think, where and having the desire and the power to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at with this, and I'll give you an example. Um, let's say there's somebody that you want to bring into your life, and it's just a random person that you know, and you're attracted to them, and you'd like for for you two to become lovers. You can and send out technically you would end up pulling, but you can send out that thought in your head of thinking of this person, thinking of your desires, and seeing that person in your head and pulling their energy towards you. Like, you can see it as if you were doing this, right? In the middle of their, like almost in their soul, pulling on that person's spirit and pulling them towards you. And so you have to come up with a visualization that will work for you during your meditation and see yourself doing that. Depending on your desire, depending on the power you have within you, I have no doubt that that person will be drawn to you. This is what I did for many, many years. And again, with practice, your manifestation will increase and or shorten with time, so that your outcome will be a lot faster as you're wishing these things to come to pass. So you can draw pictures of the person. It could be stick figures and you holding hands. It almost sounds somewhat obsessive, right? It almost sounds a little manipulative, right? But what is magic, right? What are we doing? So the whole point is putting your thought toward that person and pulling that energy toward you, okay? If you're already sleeping with the person, let's say you're trying to lock them down, at night, whisper to them, whisper in their ear, sing songs to them. I mean, it depends on how heavy they sleep or light they sleep. Touch them. There are a lot of things you can do, and especially when somebody's sleeping, where your spirit can commune with their spirit. And again, you're doing the same thing with the pulling, right? You're doing the same type of motion, the same type of thought as your desire is strong. You can gather hair, you can gather fingernails, not to do anything with yet, but you can gather them in little vials. Like if you have an altar or if you have an area where you keep your herbs at, and you just keep vials of their hair, of their nails, you can do that. It's power over them, right? And some people might say, why would I want to do that? And you don't have to do that. But again, we are here to create our worlds and to make things happen. So these are just some of my recommendations that I have for you, as far as think of it as almost you getting into the mind of that person, of that target that you're trying to attract or bring to you. So these are just examples on thought forms and desire and your will. And that's basically what you're doing, exacting your will on somebody else. You're exerting your power over that target to make them yours, to bring them to you. Um, you have to be careful because there's always the backfires, right? And so let's talk about the backfire, which is once you get them, you might not want them, right? Once you actually get this person, you might just want them for a fling, or you might just want them for a couple of years or whatever. All of a sudden they move in and you're like, oh shit, what did I do? This person's annoying, they're frustrating, I no longer want this. So that's the backfire on some of this, on some of these spells or some of this manipulation, that you might not be happy with the end result, even though initially you were willing to do anything you could in order to get them to you, including manipulation of energy. But sometimes it can backfire on you. Other times you sabotage yourself, and I wanted to mention that as well. Sometimes you'll get the person, you'll have them, and it'll be a wonderful and great time, and life is good, but you'll sabotage yourself if you might play games, or they might hit you up and you don't respond. Maybe you don't want to seem desperate, and you sabotage yourself because now they think you're not interested in them. And so they back away, saying, okay, well, this person's not interested in me, so, I'll move on to the next. And then you lose out on that opportunity that you've worked so hard to try to get, that you did get because they were there in your space, in your field, wanting you, but you decided not to pursue or not to respond to messages, or for whatever reason, or wanting to play hard to get, and then you lose your target. So even though spiritual things can work if we put our minds to it and our energy to it, physically we still have to do what makes sense. We still have to use common sense in order to get that person into our lives. We can't then shun them once we have them in our space. So that's the next thing. Let's see. Also, you can, and I wrote this down because I think this is important. I have clients that will come to me and ask me to do work like this for them, and I can. And in one particular case, I taught a client how to uh, basically visualize what they were seeking, and that's what they did. It's always better if the person closest to the target is doing it. So it's not that spiritualists can't do this work for you, but in one case, I taught my client how to visualize and be able to see this person coming toward her, and so he did. And so with both of us working at it, I'm still visualizing on my side, she was on her side, and it did work where he did come to her. So remember this, and I wanted to mention this, that there are two parts to it. There is the constructing the thought form, and then there's the sending out the thought form. So you have to do both. You can't just think of it and not send it out. And I think that's where a lot of people fail at this. Like, you have to think about it, but then you have to send it out. You have to see it going out to your target. You have to send out that thought form to your target in order for it to be effective. And I think that's where a lot of people stop. I wanted to read you guys something. I wrote this down because I thought this was very good. It's by Alice Bailey. It's a book she wrote, a treatise on cosmic fire. Not sure if you've heard of that book, but you definitely need to pick it up. Let me read this to you, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting directly, but it says here, finally, having constructed a thought form, you must send it on its mission. So again, like I said, you can't just think it and then let it drop. You have to send it out in order to for it to be effective. She says here, the average person is victim to their own thought form. She says they construct them, but they're not strong enough to send them out in order to do the work that it needs to do. Or they're not wise enough to rid themselves of it if needed, because there's a way to dismantle thought forms. It's just way too much to talk about in this video right now, but to rid yourself or dismantle thought forms. Not that you can recall what you've already sent out. I don't really believe that, but you can also dismantle it so it stops sending it out. So, but that's for another topic. So there's the two parts. the thought form and sending it out. Those are things that you can do right now for whatever you desire. Uh, Drawing them out. You know how some people have those vision boards? Well, they'll write a board on there. This is the guy that I want. This is the car that I want. Here's the house with the 2.5 kids. And they'll do that on a board, kind of like a vision. Like, you have to see this. You have to be able to visualize what you desire. I am living proof that it can happen, and it can happen, which would be the goal after you realize you're able to do this. The goal would be to speed it up so that you can think something and it happen in a matter of days, in a matter of even weeks. Or, like I said, I started from 6 months and went all the way down to 2 days where things were happening, to the point where it did scare me being younger at the time. It might actually freak me out now if that were probably to happen, but not as much as when I was 18, where I swore off of it for a while. So if I can do it, you can do it as well. So those were the most uh, important things I really wanted to mention to you, to try to make this a quick video. But I thought it was important to talk about thought forms and the quote about, well, it's really the occult law that we talk about, that energy does follow thought. If you think it and you send your energy with it, it will go out and it will do what you sent it to do. Sometimes time, which is a whole nother topic, is the issue, is waiting for these things to manifest, waiting for these things to come to pass. But I believe they will come to pass. One time I did something, and it didn't happen for many years, but it happened. Of course, by the time it happened, I didn't want it to happen anymore, but it already had happened. So a lot of times, it seems like something isn't manifesting that you've sent out, but it is. It's still in the ether. It's still being worked. You still spoke it. It's still out there, and it will come to pass. They used to say this, that God created the world by speaking it, and that we create our own worlds by speaking it, whether you believe in that or not. But I liked how that sounded, because I do believe our words have power, and our thoughts do too. Especially our thoughts have power. So I hope you got a little something today from this video, and hopefully it makes you think a little about the next time you think, especially consciously think of something, you're creating a thought form for it to be manifest. It's something that's in here that will go out if you send it out to do what it's supposed to do. So, okay, well, that's it for today's video. I hope you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.